What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fabulous day today. So in my short amount of time here on YouTube, I get a lot of people asking me about settings. People wanting to know, what are your sports settings? What are your general settings? So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of my Chi2 box settings that I use for my Elegoo Mars and my Anycubic Photon Mono X. And I'm also going to walk through some support settings, and I'm also going to walk through some general settings that I use for my FDM printer on my Ender 3. Now these are just suggestive settings that work for me. They could work for you depending on the model that you have, but these settings here help provide me with good quality models and a lot fewer failed prints, I guess you could say. But let's get right down to it, all right? So when I first got into resin 3D printing, it was a lot of trial and error. I mean, I went through all kinds of settings. I did a lot of research from other people that have experienced it before, who have been doing it for a while, and I got failed print after failed print, couldn't understand why. And then, you know, it just kind of came together after I just did a lot of trial and error. So if you're new to 3D printing, just be prepared for that. But needless to say, this is what I use to get top quality prints. And with these settings, I've had very few failed prints. Maybe it's not your settings at all. Maybe it's just some best practices that you need to follow. For number one, is your bed level. Number two, is your FEP in good condition? Take it from me, I just had to replace a $160 screen in one of my Anycubic Photon Mono X's. It's not good on the pocketbook, trust me. You don't want to go through that. And number three, I live by this one, and that is strain your resin. No matter if it's new, no matter if you're taking it from the vat to the bottle, bottle to the vat, always strain your resin. I've gotten resin in brand new, never been opened before, and there's been chunks of dried resin and stuff inside of there. If that stuff gets under your build plate, onto your FEP, it can do considerable damage to your FEP, to your screen, and even to your build plate, and guarantee you're going to get a failed print. And number four, and the last one, and I just got to throw this one in there, is what kind of resin are you using? Does it look like water when you pour it out, or does it look like maple syrup when you pour it out? So don't go for the cheapest stuff, go for the stuff that's been proven time and time again. And the same thing goes for PLA. Make sure you're not using the cheapest stuff out there. Make sure you're using quality stuff, because if you don't, it's rest assured you're gonna have problems out of it. So let's take a dive in and look at the settings. All right, everybody, so I am going to show you how to import an item and put it here in Mesh Mixer. That way you can actually do a plane cut on it. It's quite simple, actually. So I do this for items that are, or models that are too big for my Anycubic or my Elegoo that I have to trim down or whatever. But let me show you a really cool way to do this. And you can play with it if you want. So when you open up Mesh Mixer, it's going to look like this, and you're going to import an item. And this right here, I'm going to import this item. It's going to generate the mesh for it. Give it just a minute. And I'll actually pop it up here for you. Now you can right click on it and you can spin it around however you want. You can make it bigger. You can make the image bigger if you want. So what I generally do is, if I like, this is going to be way too big for my printer. So even in 1/6 scale. So I want to take and cut that in half so I can actually print it in two pieces. So I'm going to go to Edit, and then I'm going to go into Plane Cut right here. And it'll actually just, by default, it'll actually pop it right in here. And as you can see, you'll have like tutorials that'll pop up here for you. So generally what I want to do when I position this to where I want, which is right where I want, right there, and you can take the arrows and you can make this spin. You can make it the line actually spin, the axis, the plane on there, and you can cut it however you want to. When you cut it, basically this is what you're gonna cut into here, okay? So for this one here, I want to get back to the way it was. You can actually go up, move this plane up and down. Now I'm a novice when it comes to Mesh Mixer, but I've used it on a lot of my models and it's helped me pretty well. So let's say that I just want to cut it right here, okay? So what I will do is I will go up here. Now you can cut, if you only need one end of it, you can just discard the other half, but I want to keep both ends. So I'm going to drop down, slice, and keep both. And then I'm going to hit accept. And this is actually going to put it in two different areas. You can't see that yet, but what you want to do then is go to separate shells. Click on that. And now you have two halves. One half here, one half there. Now, if you want to make several different cuts, of course, it's going to have different ones here in this category. But I want to just save it as it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this. And I'm basically just going to save it to this drive here, which is my Han Solo and Carbonite. I'm going to save it as, let's just say, test. Or you can name it whatever you want, and you'll just save it. And it'll write all your vertices and save it into that file. And you're going to do the same thing with the second half here. The bigger the file, the longer it takes. Okay? And then you can do the second one as well. You'll export it and go into the same file. And that is how you save something in Mesh Mixer, cut it, and everything else. All right? That's just a quick rundown of how I actually size down stuff to print it into my printers. Hope that helps. All right, everybody. So for most of my resin prints, I use Chi2 Box. And so here are my settings, what I am using on the machine right now. And I have programmed in here, I have my Mars as well. So you can kind of look at where I'm at right there. Of course, the resin density and all that stuff is just, I think, default. And here are my print settings. And then I don't use any advanced settings or anything like that. And for my Elegoo Mars, I basically use this type of settings here. Again, it takes a little bit longer to print, and I'm always good for that because I'd rather have, wait a little longer for a print to come out and develop rather than just have some type of, just print failure after print failure. So I get it right the first time. I've dealt with this for quite some time, and these are the settings that I'm most satisfied with. Again, my bottom exposure time is a little more. My bottom layer count is a little more sometimes compared to others, and my lift speeds are a little slower than some other people, but again, I don't have a lot of those issues. All right, so let's go print something on, or get it ready for the Anycubic, and I will walk through my support settings. So let's go ahead and get that. Let's open up a project here and actually get that Han Solo half right here, the top half. All right, so it's going to actually take it on the build plate. And the way I did this was because I have the bottom and the top, I can actually print both at the same time. And okay, and there's the bottom, the back half right there. So that gives me adequate space and everything. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing that I do that I found pretty good success with. Now, if you print the prints, if you print it like this, what's going to happen is this one here is going to turn out really good at the top. You're not going to have any support divots or anything like that. It's going to be a flat surface. So this one here will not, because you're going to have the support divots. It's going to be, you're going to have to do some sanding in order to get this to even with this one here, and it's going to look like doo-doo. So I'm going to flip this, and I'm actually going to print it this way so that I actually get both of these edges smooth and everything. And of course, you don't want to print a plain surface like this. I always give it a little bit of an incline. All right. maybe not that much, but I always want to give it a little bit of an incline so when I get ready to print, it's not going to print a flat surface and you're going to have a lot of suction and stuff that's going to cause it to rip away from the build plate. Now on G2 box as well, I'm actually going to both of these right here. What I tend to do is I'm going to hollow those out. And this is my settings for those, the 1.2 millimeter, and I use an infill density of only 5%. You can go higher, you can go lower, but I found that 5 will not cause the print to buckle after you cure it. Sometimes you'll see like how it buckles and stretches and stuff because you put too much density in it, and if you put not enough in it, it becomes really super flimsy. So 5% really works for me. I've been using it for a very long time. And then once I hit start, actually it actually starts to hollow out the print, and you can actually see I always choose the X-ray over here so I know what it's going to look like once it kind of once it gets it going. And it takes just a minute to hollow it out. Now depending on the print itself, it can take a lot longer to take up, take it just really quickly. You should know this already. Alright, so I'm kind of looking at what my infill density is going to look like. It's pretty accurate. There's not a lot in there. I'm hoping along the way here, but I just want to see what it's going to look like all the way down. All right. So then now I got my infill, I got my thickness, and I'm basically going to put some drain holes in. I go with a 5 millimeter hole. That's not too big and not too small. You may have to size it down a little bit depending on the area that you're going to. So I'll add a hole. And basically what I'm going to do is I add 2 holes for suction out of the bottom. Anywhere that I can actually add a hole to help with the drainage, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So on this side I don't need to do anything, and I'm good to go with this right here. So once you add your holes, then you're basically ready to add your supports. So you go over here, add your supports. I'm actually going to do a heavy support on this one because of the size and the weight of the print. So you can see my settings here, what I usually use. And you can mess around with it if you want to, but I usually use auto supports. I may go in and take away a few, and then add a few, and then I just hit all, and it usually gives me what I want. Of course, if I feel like I need more support, I'll go in, I'll add something there. So I'll add something there or whatever. If I feel like that I don't have enough or I have too many, then I'll actually go back and take them away. One thing that I do look at is I look at the bottom to see how much support is on there, because if you have too much, then it's going to be really difficult to take it off the build plate. Anytime you do a heavy support base on there, the build plate is it's gonna be a little rough to take it off. And as you can see that I kind of went over the build plate, the volume area, but that's not a big deal. You can still slice it. So once I'm satisfied with it, I will actually go back to it and I will slice it. It'll tell you you've exceeded the printing platen. It'll tell you that you exceeded the printing platform. Do you want to continue? I always hit yes. And if it's something outrageous, of course, I'll go back and revise it. But once it is sliced, it'll actually show you that it is ready to go. But those are my settings. You can tweak them a little bit. It is a matter of your preference. This is what has worked for me, and I've gotten some really, really good prints out of it. All right, so it's done. These are my exposure times. These are all my retract and lift speeds and everything that's on here. You can change that if you feel like you need to, and then you're ready to save it. And that is all there is. All right, everybody, this is the settings for my Ender 3. This is the only FDM printer that I am currently using. I get usually really good prints out of this by these settings here. So So we can add a file to it. Let's add a model here. Let's just add, let's just save this right here. Okay. But this usually gives me everything that I need: the printing temperature, the bed temperature, the basically for your, your extruder. Fill density, I use about 4%. I feel like that's plenty. I don't do overkill because at that point you're just wasting a lot of filament. The thickness at 1 millimeter, that gives me a pretty good scan on it, and the shell thickness 0.8. And layer height, I usually print at 0.15. I haven't found much of a difference between 0.05 versus 0.15. Some people do, but I have not run across that yet. I get I get pretty much the same type of print level as I do with both ends, and just the different amount the difference is the amount of time that I actually spend on it. And then I basically run the support type. You can run none everywhere. I usually just touch in the build plate, and I usually just use a brim platform adhesion type. Raft, I will use it if I am doing a larger print. However, that's going to take up a lot more print time. And that's pretty much it on that. My advanced settings are basically what you see here. Nothing fancy. Most of this is default. That is pretty much it on that. So usually once I do that, I'm satisfied with what I'm doing. I've got my time that I'm actually going to be able to print, that the item's going to be take to print, and then I will just save it to save the G code and put it on the printer. It's ready to go. All right, guys, so I have my two pieces here that I divided in Mesh Mixer. They're fresh off the printer. I did clean them because I don't want resin all over my hands, but they have not been cured yet or anything. So basically, you saw how I took and put my supports on the non-connecting ends. And the reason I do that is because when I have two pieces together, two pieces that I want to fit together, I want them to be as flush as possible without any seam lines, any warpage or anything like that. And whenever you take and put supports on those ends, it tends to not flatten the area anymore. You still have a little warpage, little divots from the supports, little pieces of this, that, and the other, and you have to sand it. And 9 times out of 10, when you connect them together, then you have to wind up putting some filler of some sort in there. So I want to minimize that as much as possible. So take a look at these two ends that I did, and all I have to do now is I've got them connected here. And as you can see, there's barely any seam line whatsoever on it. And again, I'm not holding them straight, but all I'm gonna have to do is basically put like a little thin layer of resin over the top of it, or some type of filler all the way around it. And there's no warpage all the way around it at all. It fits flush, and that's what I want. I want to make sure that I'm working smart and not hard when it comes to sanding these things down. So it's just a suggestion for you to try, but you can't always do this. If you have a piece that has multi-contact surface areas that's going to be connecting all the way around, obviously you're going to have to orientate it to one of those parts right there, but the other sides should be easy to fit flush and make your life a lot easier. I hope that helps. All right, so I have teamed up with the guys from Wicked Art, and we are going to give 3 random winners 3 STL files for free. All you've got to do is go to the comment section below and type in Be Creative. That's B-E Creative. And we're going to give you Gamora, Star-Lord, and the diorama base that they both go on for absolutely free. I will notify the winners in the comments section, and then we're going to hook you up and get your free STL files to you. Now, you don't have to be a subscriber to win, but we sure would like for you to be. If you like everything in the video, that you like the other videos, make sure you do subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, because we're going to be doing some more of these giveaways in future videos further on down the line. So until that time, guys, thank you for tuning in to us. Thank you for the support of the channel in my short time here on YouTube. I greatly appreciate it. And we will see you the next video. See ya.